The old house on Maple Street had always been a mystery. Its tall stone walls stood firm, hiding whatever lay beyond. No one in town had seen anyone enter or leave in years, yet the lights flickered at night, and whispers seemed to slip through the cracks. For 12-year-old Sam, this mystery was too tempting to ignore. Every day on his way home from school, he would stop and stare at the wall, wondering what secrets it held. His best friend, Mia, thought he was wasting his time. "Just leave it alone, Sam. It's probably abandoned," she said one afternoon. "But what if it's not?" Sam argued. "What if there's something hidden inside?" One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sam decided to find out. He climbed over the rusted gate, his heart pounding. The garden was overgrown, weeds creeping over cracked stone paths. The house loomed ahead, its windows dark like empty eyes. Then he heard it, a faint sound, like a whisper, coming from behind the wall. "Help me!" Sam froze. The voice was soft, almost pleading. Someone was inside. Sam's breath caught in his throat. He wasn't imagining it. Someone had spoken. The voice had come from the other side of the stone wall, hidden in the shadows of the old house. He hesitated, then took a step forward. "Hello?" he called out, his voice barely above a whisper. Silence. Then, just as he was about to turn back, the whisper came again. "Please, help me." Sam's heart pounded. He pressed his hands against the cold stone wall, searching for a crack or an opening. "Who's there?" A rustling sound came from the other side, like footsteps moving away. Then, nothing. The house stood still, dark and lifeless. Sam knew he should leave. Mia was right. This was dangerous, but something inside him wouldn't let him walk away. He took a deep breath and made his way to the back of the house. The wooden door was slightly open, as if inviting him in. With one last glance over his shoulder, he stepped inside. The air smelled of dust and something else, something rotten. His fingers brushed against the peeling wallpaper as he moved through the hallway. Old furniture covered in white sheets loomed like ghosts in the dim light. Then he saw it, a wooden trapdoor in the floor, slightly ajar. The whisper came again, this time from below. "Please, don't leave me." Sam's fingers trembled as he reached for the handle. Sam hesitated, his fingers gripping the trapdoor handle. A hidden mystery lay beneath his feet, and every instinct told him to turn back. But the whisper, that desperate, pleading voice, kept him frozen in place. With a deep breath, he pulled the trapdoor open. A gust of cold air rushed past him, carrying the scent of damp wood and something faintly metallic. Below, a wooden staircase led into darkness. Sam took out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The dim beam revealed a small underground room lined with old shelves covered in dust. In the center of the floor sat a wooden chest, its lid slightly ajar. He stepped down cautiously, his footsteps echoing in the confined space. As he moved closer to the chest, he noticed something strange. There were fresh footprints in the dust. Someone had been here recently. He swallowed hard and reached for the chest's lid. The hinges creaked as he pushed it open. Inside, wrapped in a yellowed cloth, was an old leather-bound journal. The name on the cover read, Eleanor Hastings, 1923. Sam's pulse quickened. Eleanor Hastings. That name sounded familiar. Then it hit him. She was the girl who had disappeared 100 years ago. His hands shook as he opened the journal. The first page was smudged with faded ink, but he could still make out the words. "If someone finds this, please know, I never ran away. I was taken, and I know the truth about the house behind the wall." Sam barely had time to process the words before a noise made his heart stop. A slow creak. The trap door was closing. Someone was upstairs. Sam's stomach dropped as the trap door creaked shut. He spun around, his flashlight beam shaking. Someone was upstairs. He grabbed the journal and shoved it into his backpack, his mind racing. If Eleanor Hastings had been taken, then who or what had done it? And why was the house still hiding her secret 100 years later? A faint scuffling sound echoed from above. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Sam pressed himself against the wall, barely breathing. He needed a way out. His flashlight flickered as he scanned the room. Then he saw it. An old wooden door, half hidden behind a stack of broken furniture. He hurried toward it, gripping the rusted handle. It groaned in protest as he yanked it open, revealing a narrow tunnel lined with crumbling bricks. The air smelled of damp earth and something else, something old. He stepped inside just as the trapdoor above slammed shut. Sam froze. Silence. Then 3 slow knocks. Someone knew he was here. His heart hammering, he turned and ran down the tunnel, the journal clutched tight in his hands. The passage twisted and turned, leading him deeper beneath the house. Then, suddenly, he stopped. There, at the end of the tunnel, was another door. Unlike the rest of the house, this one looked untouched. Polished wood. A brass handle. And carved into its surface was a single word. Truth. Sam swallowed hard. He had come this far. There was no turning back now. With a deep breath, he reached for the handle. Sam's fingers trembled as he gripped the brass handle. The word truth carved into the door sent a shiver down his spine. What was behind it? And how was it connected to Eleanor Hastings? He turned the handle. The door swung open with a whisper, revealing a dimly lit chamber lined with shelves. On the shelves were newspapers, old photographs, and rusted keys, all carefully arranged as if someone had been collecting them. Sam stepped inside, his flashlight casting eerie shadows. At the center of the room stood a wooden desk, its surface covered with more journals, maps, and a single flickering candle. He picked up one of the newspapers, his heart pounding as he read the headline, "Local Girl Vanishes, 1923, Eleanor Hastings missing, presumed dead." Sam's breath caught. The article claimed Eleanor had disappeared without a trace, but her journal had said otherwise. I was taken. Taken by who? And why? As he flipped through the papers, something caught his eye. A photo. It was old and faded, but he recognized the house behind the wall. Standing in front of it was a group of people dressed in 1920s clothing. One man stood in the center, his piercing eyes staring straight ahead. His name was written in neat ink below the photo. Jonathan Blackwood. Sam frowned. That name sounded familiar. He turned and scanned the shelves until he found another journal. This one had Jonathan Blackwood's name on the cover. He flipped it open and his blood ran cold. The first entry read, "Eleanor knows too much. She cannot leave this house. No one can ever know what happened here." Sam's hands shook. He needed to get out of here. He stuffed the journal into his backpack and turned toward the tunnel. Then, a voice echoed through the room. "Reading things that don't belong to you is dangerous." Sam spun around. The candle flickered violently. The door behind him slammed shut on its own. He was not alone. Sam's breath hitched. The voice had come from behind him, but when he turned, no one was there. The candle's flame flickered wildly, casting eerie shadows across the room. The air had changed. It was heavier now, charged with something unseen. Then suddenly the pages of the journals began to flip on their own. The old papers rustled as if an invisible hand was searching for something. Sam staggered back, his flashlight trembling. His mind screamed at him to run, but his body refused to move. Something was in this room with him. A whisper filled the air. "He never let me leave. He won't let you leave either." Sam's stomach twisted. "Eleanor?" he whispered. The whisper grew louder, more desperate. "You must leave, now, before he comes." Sam turned, fumbling for the door handle, but the brass was ice-cold beneath his fingers. It wouldn't budge. Then the candle went out. Darkness swallowed the room, and in the silence, a deep, slow breathing filled the air. Sam's chest tightened. He wasn't alone anymore. A sudden violent force slammed him against the shelves. Books and papers rained down around him. His flashlight rolled across the floor, its beam landing on something that made his heart stop. A figure stood at the far end of the room, tall, shadowy, eyes like glowing embers. And then it spoke. "You should not have come here, Sam." Sam's blood ran cold. How did it know his name? Sam's hands trembled as he picked up Jonathan Blackwood's journal. The ink on the last page looked fresher than it should have, as if someone had written it just moments ago. The deal was broken, but the house remembers. It always remembers. A chill ran down his spine. What did that mean? The air in the house felt different now, lighter, emptier. But something deep in his gut told him he wasn't done yet. Taking a deep breath, Sam flipped through Blackwood's journal. The pages were filled with strange symbols, sketches of the house, and cryptic notes. Then he found it, a passage that sent ice through his veins. "The house is a vessel. It does not forgive. It does not forget. Eleanor was not the first, and she will not be the last." Sam's pulse hammered. Not the first, not the last. A floorboard creaked above him. His eyes darted upward. He wasn't alone. Slow, deliberate footsteps echoed through the house. Someone or something was still here. The whispers had stopped. The chains had broken, but the house still remembered. And now, it remembered him. Sam's grip tightened on the journal. He had freed Eleanor, but he wasn't sure he had freed himself. Sam's breath quickened. The footsteps above were slow, measured, as if someone knew he was here. His grip tightened on Jonathan Blackwood's journal. He had broken the deal, freed Eleanor, and shattered the mirror. But the house still remembered. A low creak came from the staircase. Who else was in here? Sam had a choice: run or stay and uncover the deeper secret. His instincts screamed at him to leave, but he had come too far. The journal's last entry haunted him. Eleanor was not the first, and she will not be the last, if more people had been trapped before. What if someone else was still here? Sam took a slow breath and stepped toward the hallway. The house was eerily still, the candlelight from before completely gone. He flicked on his flashlight and aimed it toward the stairs. At the top stood a figure. It wasn't a shadow. It wasn't Eleanor. It was a boy. He looked no older than Sam, maybe 13. His clothes were old-fashioned, his face pale, his eyes dark with something unreadable. Sam's chest tightened. Who are you?" he asked. The boy tilted his head slightly. His voice was a whisper. "You broke the mirror." Sam swallowed. "Yeah, I did." The boy took a slow step forward. "Then why are you still here?" Sam's stomach dropped. He didn't know. He had freed Eleanor. He had undone the deal. So why was the house still holding him? Unless... His eyes darted back to the journal. The words seemed to blur in the dim light, but one line stood out, scrawled in the margins in shaky handwriting. "The house does not let go of those who know too much." A cold realization settled over him. It wasn't just Eleanor who had been trapped. Now it was him. Sam's breath came in short, panicked gasps. The figure stood completely still, its glowing eyes locked onto him. His mind screamed at him to run, but his legs refused to move. "You should not have come here, Sam." The voice was deep, ancient, and filled with something inhuman. Summoning every ounce of courage, Sam forced himself to speak. Who are you?" The figure took a slow step forward. The air grew colder. "I am the keeper of this house, the last guardian of its secrets." Sam's fingers brushed against his backpack, where Eleanor Hastings' journal was tucked away. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. "Eleanor, she said she was taken. Was it you?" The figure froze. Then, in a low, almost sorrowful voice, it murmured, "She was never meant to find the truth." Sam's pulse raced. What truth? What had Eleanor discovered that had gotten her trapped here? Gritting his teeth, he took a step forward. "Tell me, what happened to her?" The shadows around the figure shifted. Its ember-like eyes flickered as if recalling something long buried. "Jonathan Blackwood made a deal," it finally said. "A terrible deal to keep his family's power. Eleanor learned the cost, and for that, she had to stay." Sam's chest tightened. A deal? A cost? His flashlight flickered again, and in that brief second, he saw something that made his blood run cold. The figure wasn't just shadow. It was wrapped in chains. Chains that pulled toward the ground as if something unseen held it captive. Eleanor hadn't just been taken, she had been trapped. And now, Sam had stepped into the same trap. The figure slowly lifted a hand, and suddenly, the door behind Sam slammed shut. Now so must you. The room plunged into darkness. Darkness swallowed Sam whole. The air turned thick, as if the very walls were closing in around him. The shadowy figure's eyes glowed in the void, unblinking. Now so must you. Panic surged through Sam. No, he wasn't going to be trapped here. Desperate, he grabbed Eleanor's journal from his backpack, flipping through the pages with shaking hands. There had to be something, some clue on how to escape. Then he saw it. A passage near the end, written in shaky handwriting. "There is a way out. Blackwood's deal can be undone. But the house won't let me. The secret is in the mirror." The mirror? Sam's flashlight flickered back on, and he swung it wildly around the room. His heart slammed against his ribs when he spotted it. A tall, dust-covered mirror standing in the corner. But the reflection in the glass wasn't his own. It was Eleanor Hastings. Sam gasped. She looked just like the old photographs. Pale, dressed in 1920s clothing, her eyes wide with fear. She pressed her hands against the glass, shaking her head. "He's coming! You have to break it!" The figure behind Sam lurched forward. Chains rattled violently as it reached for him. Sam didn't hesitate. He grabbed a rusted metal candlestick from the desk and hurled it at the mirror. The glass shattered. A deafening scream tore through the room. The walls trembled, the shelves collapsed, and the chains binding the figure snapped. The shadowy presence let out a terrible echoing cry as it began to dissolve into the darkness. Sam stumbled backward, shielding his face as a powerful gust of wind surged through the tunnel, pulling the shadows away. Then silence. He opened his eyes. The room was gone. The stone walls had crumbled. Sam was back in the house, and standing before him was Eleanor. No longer just a reflection, she smiled, a sad, grateful smile. "You freed me." Sam's heart pounded. The weight in the air had lifted. The whispers were gone. The house felt empty. Eleanor's form flickered, becoming more transparent. Sam realized what was happening. "You're leaving, aren't you?" he asked. She nodded. "I can now. Thanks to you." A warm golden light surrounded her. And then she was gone. Sam took a shaky breath. It was over. But as he turned to leave, his foot brushed against something on the floor, Jonathan Blackwood's journal. The last page was written in bold, dark ink. The deal was broken, but the house remembers. It always remembers. Sam's blood ran cold. Sam's breath hitched. The boy on the stairs stood eerily still, his dark eyes watching. "Then why are you still here?" Sam's grip tightened on the journal. His pulse pounded in his ears. He had freed Eleanor, but the house wasn't letting him go. He had to escape, now. Without another word, he turned and ran. The hallway stretched endlessly before him, the air thick with something unseen. The walls groaned. The house didn't want him to leave. Footsteps pounded behind him. Sam didn't dare look back. He sprinted toward the front door, his heart hammering. He grabbed the doorknob and twisted locked. Panic flared in his chest. "No, no, no!" He threw his weight against the door. It wouldn't budge. The air grew colder, the whispers returning, swirling around him. "You know too much, Sam." Something brushed against his shoulder. He spun around. The boy was right behind him. Sam gasped, stumbling backward. The boy's face was blank, expressionless, but his eyes, they were pleading. "Take the book." Sam hesitated. "What?" "Take it with you. It's the key." The whispers grew louder. The house shook. Sam clutched Jonathan Blackwood's journal tight against his chest. The boy stepped closer, his voice urgent. "The door won't let you go unless you trick it. You have to make the house think you don't remember." Sam's mind raced. Make the house think he didn't remember? He didn't have time to question it. The walls shuddered. The floor cracked. "Now, Sam!" the boy shouted. Sam sucked in a breath, clenched his eyes shut, and forced himself to forget. Forget the whispers. Forget the shadows. Forget the terrible truth buried in the walls. He focused only on leaving. The door burst open. A powerful force ripped through the house. Wind howled, the whispers turned to screams, and the walls seemed to collapse inward. Sam was flung outside. He hit the cold grass, rolling down the front steps. Then, silence. He gasped for air. His hands trembled. The house was still. Slowly he looked up. The house behind the wall was gone. Nothing remained but an empty lot, overgrown with vines. as if it had never been there at all. Sam's heart pounded. He reached for his backpack. Jonathan Blackwood's journal was still there. He was free. But deep down he knew the house remembered. And if he ever opened the journal again, it might just come back